A Fox 61 Weather Watch alert timing showers and thunderstorms for your Wednesday.
Tonight on Connecticut's news station, former President Donald Trump responds after he's arraigned in federal court.
This is called election interference and yet another attempt to rig and steal a presidential election. More importantly, it's a political persecution like something straight out of a fascist or communist nation.
We'll hear from Trump as he faces dozens of charges and is accused of mishandling classified documents.
Also, the latest details on President Biden's visit to Connecticut on Friday and how it continues the push for gun reform in the U.S.
And the budget battle heats up in one Connecticut town after voters reject hundreds of thousands of dollars in education cuts.
Fox 61, Connecticut's news station, begins with a Weather Watch alert.
And we begin here at 10 tonight, tracking some severe thunderstorms coming our way tomorrow. Here's a look at the future radar from the Weather Watch Center tonight. It looks like the best chance for storms will be in the afternoon and into the early evening. Good evening. I'm Ben Goldman.
And I'm Jen Bernstein. Thank you so much for joining us. After what's expected to be a dry and sunny morning, some of those storms could be severe with strong wind and small hail possible later in the day. We want to check in with Chief Meteorologist Rachel Frank for a first check of the forecast. Rachel.
And of course, there's so much going on this time of year. We have outdoor graduations, people needing to make decisions on that, and also field days at schools. I know all of this because you guys are asking me questions about what is the deal for tomorrow. So yes, showers and thunderstorms. The timing of this will be starting at around 1 o'clock in the afternoon and continuing through 8 p.m. It'll be off and on, and there might even be a few rounds of showers and thunderstorms, and a few of those could briefly pulse up and turn severe. So we'll be watching the radar closely. In some of the stronger storms, there could be wind gusts 40 to 60 miles per hour, and there is a potential for hail as well. And this is the system that we're watching. You can actually see this swirl in the atmosphere here. It doesn't really look like much, but that'll be the culprit for bringing us those showers and storms tomorrow. Right now, it actually feels delightful out there. Temperatures are in the 60s to right around 70 degrees. The dew point has come way down. We woke up here in the very humid category, and now we are settling back into comfy, at least briefly, so you can keep the windows open tonight and let some fresh air in if you want to. Overnight lows in the 50s. That's where we start tomorrow morning. Plenty of sunshine to begin the day. Temperatures rising into the 70s with a rising chance for scattered showers and thunderstorms as we head through the afternoon. And then things will have fizzled as we head towards this time tomorrow night. There's another chance for storms later in the forecast Friday and maybe even into the weekend. We got you covered. Full forecast coming up.
All right, thank you, Rachel. And stay up to date on the forecast. Be sure to download the free Fox 61 News app. It's a great source for live radar, hour-by-hour forecasts, and weather warnings sent right to your phone. You can also find breaking news and traffic conditions all across Connecticut. All right, we are following breaking news tonight. Former President Donald Trump is responding after appearing in a federal court in Miami.
Trump arrived back to his golf course in New Jersey just hours after he was arraigned on more than 3 dozen charges related to mishandling classified documents. Fox 61's Brent Harden joining us in the Breaking News Center tonight after former President Trump just finished giving a speech this evening. Brent?
Yeah, Ben and Jen, tonight's speech comes after Trump pleaded not guilty to all 37 counts he faces. Many of those charges come under the Espionage Act, as Trump is accused of illegally storing classified documents in his bedroom, his bathroom, and other locations throughout his Mar-a-Lago estate. Now, while a historic moment, today's arraignment was just a procedural part of the case. Protesters supporting Trump and demonstrators opposing him were outside the federal courthouse in Miami today. While on his way to court, Trump continued posting social media attacks against prosecutors, but inside the courtroom, he sat silently as a lawyer entered his not guilty plea on his behalf. Trump was not ordered to surrender his passport, and no restrictions were placed on his travel. Trump landed back in New Jersey tonight, where he held a campaign fundraiser at his golf club in Bedminster. And during his speech tonight, Trump continued his attacks on the Justice Department, which brought the charges against him last week. Trump once again repeated his claims he's a victim of a witch hunt and blamed President Joe Biden.
This is called election interference and yet another attempt to rig and steal a presidential election. More importantly, it's a political persecution like something straight out of a fascist or a communist nation.
Special counsel Jack Smith was at today's arraignment, sitting in the front row behind his team of prosecutors. Trump was also ordered not to discuss the case with certain witnesses, and that includes his valet named Walt Nauta, who was also indicted in this case. This is far from Trump's only legal trouble. He still faces charges in New York State for hush money payments before the 2016 election. He's also under investigation in Washington, D.C. for his actions during the January 6th insurrection and in Atlanta for attempts to overturn the 2020 election. Here in the Breaking News Center, Brent Harden, Fox 61, Connecticut's news station. Jen?
All right, thank you, Brent. Well, we are following developing news tonight out of Hartford, where police are searching for a suspect wanted in an attempted robbery. It happened on Park Street in the city's Frog Hollow neighborhood just before 10:30 this morning. Investigators say two men entered Exquisite Pressure Shop when they pistol whipped and tried to rob an employee. That employee shot at the suspects and hit one of them. That suspect was taken to the hospital, where he's listed in critical condition.
Employee fired rounds at the suspect, striking one of them. The store employee did remain on scene and is cooperating with the investigation. The second party that rushed the store is outstanding at this point, meaning he fled on foot. We do not have him.
Park Street been here for a long, long time. A lot of Spanish people been living here for a while. I feel sorry for everyone, you know.
Anyone with information about the shooting should call Hartford police. Well, we're also following another developing story in the capital city tonight. Hartford police are investigating a shooting on Wethersfield Avenue. It happened just before 4:30 this afternoon, a couple of blocks from Hartford Hospital. The man is in his 30s and is expected to survive his injuries. Anyone with information about this shooting should also call Hartford police. And new at 10, we are learning more about President Biden's planned visit to Connecticut this week, where he's expected to push for gun reforms.
The president's expected to continue urging lawmakers to address the gun violence epidemic in the United States. Fox 61's Gabby Molina joining us in studio tonight with more on President Biden's plans here in Connecticut. Gabby?
Ben and Jen, the president will be attending a summit at the University of Hartford on Friday. The day-long event will bring together gun safety advocates from here in Connecticut and around the country to discuss what's been done to prevent gun violence and what work there still is to do. Connecticut gun safety advocates are getting ready to welcome President Joe Biden to our state this week for the Safer Communities Summit at the University of Hartford.
To mark what is really an important anniversary of the Bipartisan Safer Community Act.
The legislation was signed last June by President Biden, the first in 30 years to address gun safety on a federal level. It expanded background checks, closed a loophole to help protect domestic violence victims, and provided communities with funding for violence intervention, mental health, and school safety.
I'm excited that the president is coming to Connecticut to talk about how we've used this law to save lives and how much work we still have to do.
Senator Chris Murphy led passage of the law and is continuing the conversation on the national level. He and Senator Richard Blumenthal just introduced legislation that would provide victims of gun violence with resources.
I wish this legislation weren't necessary, but until we get this problem under control, we've got to make sure that we have counseling services, grievance services available to people.
He says the summit being held in Connecticut is a testament to how the state has led the way when it comes to gun safety in the country. Last week, Governor Lamont signed a wide-ranging gun safety bill into law. It includes a crackdown on repeat offenders, something a coalition of mayors called for.
We have to make sure that our laws are strong, and we have to make sure that we enforce those laws and that there are serious consequences for those who break them.
A federal lawsuit has been filed against the state over parts of that bill by We the Patriots USA, a group that argues it violates the Second Amendment. They say the president's visit this week highlights action being taken that gun rights advocates don't agree with.
We don't believe there should be any restrictions on the right to keep and bear arms. In our opinion, laws like the one signed by Governor Lamont make the public much less safe.
President Biden is set to be the keynote speaker at the summit on Friday afternoon. We will have coverage of his visit. Coming up at 11, I'll have more on how advocates say the federal gun safety legislation is working. In the studio, Gabby Molina, Fox 61, Connecticut's news station.
All right, Gabby, thank you. New at 10 tonight, a Hartford man is arrested after being accused of robbing a bank downtown. Officers say 53-year-old Arden Dell handed a note demanding money to the teller at the TD Bank on Trumbull Street just after 10 o'clock this morning. The teller gave him money with a tracking device. Police eventually arrested him near the intersection of Hillside and New Britain Avenues. The stolen money was all recovered. Dell is now charged with second-degree robbery.
Tonight, we now know the name of a man killed in a house fire in Vernon. Police have identified the victim as 66-year-old Joel Kerr. He was found dead inside of his home on Haney Lane after a fire broke out late Sunday night. The fire marshal is still investigating what caused that fire.
We've also learned the name of a man whose body was found in the Harbor Brook River in Meriden. Police have identified him as 40-year-old Joseph Stedman. We're told that he had a history of medical issues. There were no obvious signs of anything criminal happening, but police are still investigating.
Well, early voting is officially adopted here in Connecticut after Governor Ned Lamont signed the bill into law. Starting next year, voters will have 14 days of early voting for general elections and 7 days for most primaries. There will also be 4 early voting days for presidential primaries and special elections. Some state lawmakers are already looking at the next way to expand voting rights. A referendum will soon be held on whether to allow no-excuse absentee ballots.
We'll go to the voters in 2024, so they get to weigh in on whether or not they'd like to see our Constitution changed. So the legislature could start debating it as early as 2025.
Connecticut was one of only 4 states that didn't have early voting. Governor Lamont says that he's also in favor of allowing for no-excuse absentee ballots. And Governor Lamont also signed legislation to expand the use of wrong-way driving alert systems in the state. The law requires the CTDOT to install the systems on at least 120 additional highway exit ramps statewide that have been identified as high risk. It also directs UConn to begin testing the use of rumble strips that alerts drivers when they're driving the wrong way.